To me, there are only two types of good adaptations. Ones that are very loyal, not necessarily direct, but at least loyal to the source material. Or ones that are a bit loose, but still do their own thing enough to be actually enjoyable and warrant existence. If either one of these is not met, I consider the adaptation a failure. Examples of the former would be the Lord of the Rings movies or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And examples of the latter would be, heck, almost every Disney movie. It seems like a lot of people agree with my mindset, which is good. Glad to see I'm not the only one. However, this does mean that a lot of people are very split on where to draw the line on adaptations. Specifically with the topic of today, Wayside. No, not the book series, the TV show. This cartoon aired in Canada, of course. Look at the animation. Could it come from anywhere except Canada? It also aired on Nickelodeon over here in the States. This show has become derided by the Wayside School fan base, however, has ended up finding its own audience and has become a cult classic. But is it warranted? Well, let's take a look today. Is Wayside really that bad? First of all, for those of you who don't know Wayside, either the books or the TV show, I will fill you in on the story. It's about Mrs. Jewell's class, the class on the 30th floor of the crazy school, Wayside. Wayside was supposed to be a regular old schoolhouse, where it was one story with 30 classrooms, but the builders somehow screwed up royally and built it sideways with one classroom on each floor. And wacky hijinks happen from there. There's no real set main character in Wayside. It's really all about the students in Miss Jewell's class and their wacky personalities and traits that follow. Wayside the TV show follows a very similar plot but changes some things up, like actually having a main character in Todd, the quote-unquote troublemaker in Mrs. Jewell's class who always gets sent home early on the kindergarten bus, even though he didn't really do anything wrong. He plays as the straight man in this story, given the fact that he's new here and has no idea how to survive in this wacky school. Now I'm gonna be honest, this is a terrible, terrible adaptation of the books. It changes almost everything, and when it tries to adapt, it screws up royally. We'll talk about that later on, but as an adaptation, this is an utter failure. So the first criteria is definitely not Wayside's thing, but is it the latter? Is it enjoyable enough on its own? Does it do something different to actually warrant existing? Or is it actually just one of those terrible adaptations like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory or Aragon that are just there to get attention because it has the source material's name on it? Let's take a look. I'm a bit mixed that Todd is the main character. For one, it is weird that he is the character that gets sent home early all the time. It's like we're missing out on Wayside. Good thing the cartoon is never consistent with that. In about maybe 7 episodes, Todd gets sent home early. In fact, in the books, it says that Todd has never, ever seen a full day at Wayside. But in the show, he hardly ever goes home. The only times I can really think of are the pilot movie, Todd Falls in Love, and maybe 1 or 2 others. That's it. They don't follow through on his one set character trait from the books. Though, to be fair, the personality they came up with him here is okay. It's nothing special, he's just the typical straight man, fish out of water guy, but he's a likable dude. You want to see him succeed and get out of his struggles. What's not to like about that? Main characters are usually difficult anyways. It's hard to make them really interesting. Sometimes you'll get lucky, but more often than not, it's the side characters that we remember more. Let's face it, who's your favorite character in Harry Potter? Harry, or someone like Snape, Voldemort, or Dumbledore? With that in mind, how are the supporting characters? They're a bit of a mixed bag of nuts. There are some that kinda get on my nerves like Myron or Mrs. Jewell's that are just so delusional you want to slap them and wake them up to the world around them. Then there are the ones that are in the middle like Mr. Kidswatter or Dana that they're kinda one note, same old, day in, day out. But what they do have is decent. The former being a totally wacky maniacal dictator type who's pretty ineffectual and a kid at heart, and the latter is an obsessive rule follower. Then we get the ones that are decent. Mauricia, yeah, there's a lot of iffy stuff going on with her hitting the object of her affection, being Todd. But as a character, she's pretty decent. She mixes well with others, she has different diverse traits. Which means that in each appearance, it's not the same thing over and over again. We could get her crushing on Todd and trying to win him over. We could get the extreme sports side of her. We could get her over competitiveness, that kind of stuff. Characters drive shows, and this one is very, very mixed. Every good character isn't that good, but likewise, most of the bad characters are not that bad. I'm gonna be honest, the humor is just as split. Sometimes you'll get a chuckle-worthy moment, sometimes you'll get a groaner, and I can tell you exactly where these come from. The groaners are the typical wacky, stupid people doing wacky, stupid things for no reason. Yeah, it's Wayside. Yeah, Wayside is weird, but that doesn't mean that everybody has to be a total blithering idiot. A lot of the times, characters who actually have set rules and standards for their character, being that they're actually based somewhat in logic, just have some weird elements to them, totally get broken and become absolute brain-dead imbeciles. This helps serve to prove the point that Todd is way smarter than them and he's the straight man, but this still isn't right. Breaking a character just for a plot or joke to work is bad writing. This is exactly what I got on Drawn Together Season 3 for. You need to have consistency when you write. Characters that break and bend just for the sake of a joke or plot are not characters. Characters are built off of set, consistent traits. One of the biggest examples I can think of this is the episode Kid Swatter TV, where everyone just becomes entirely insane, a brain-dead monkey, just because a satellite came in and they all get to be on TV. Or there's Myron and Normie, where Myron pretends to be his amazingly handsome and suave twin brother Normie. Everyone just becomes an idiot here. No joke, no exaggeration, just idiot. That's it. It's typical of Canadian cartoons that just have wacky characters who do wacky things for the purpose of being wacky. That alone is not a joke. What do you laugh at more? Patrick saying, "Is mayonnaise an instrument?" or Squidward's reaction to it? That's what Wayside is missing a lot of the time. Reactions to the weirdness. We have Todd for that, but a lot of the times it's more of the weirdness beating down on him and him begrudgingly going along with it rather than him reacting to it. He's not on the same level of the weirdness most of the time. We want to root for him mostly for him to get out of his situations. This largely stems from the fact that Todd is not a bad guy, but he's constantly treated as such around him. In the Wayside books, it's shown to not really affect him very much, which makes it funny. Here, he is pretty downtrodden a lot of the time. It doesn't really get to him too much, but when it does, you just feel bad for him. Sometimes though, there are jokes and quips that work and they help make an episode strong. These ones, funny enough, tend to be ones that don't have a plot. They're more about characters bouncing off of each other and reflecting on each other's personalities. These would be episodes like Age of Aquarium or The Note. Nothing really going on, nothing too big or expansive. We really get to see the characters interact. This is where its strength comes from. It's not really funny per se, but it is endearing. Of course, there is an occasional chuckle in these, but again, the draw for these is to see all of the cast act like a unit. When this does happen, it makes for a lot of fun. Personally, I feel that one of the best examples of this is the episode The Three Erics. This is where we talk about what else but the three Erics. There are three Erics in Mrs. Jewell's classroom, and one of them doesn't want to be an Eric anymore because he's constantly being overshadowed by the other Erics. But there's a problem. Wayside demands that every class has to have three Erics. No more, no less. So Mauricia decides to become an Eric. This is exactly what I was talking about. It's her bouncing off of the weirdness and reacting to it in bizarre and exciting ways. This is funny. This is endearing. But you know what's not? The other plot where the other Eric is trying to become like Myron, where it's basically just Myron acting like an idiot some more. That really kills it. This would have been my favorite episode had that not been tacked on. A lot of episodes are like that too. Then there's the issue of a lot of them showing promise but burning out upon entry. Episodes like Cabbage My Boy or Mrs. Gorf that try to adapt stuff from the book but get it way, way wrong. This right here is exactly what I was talking about with Wayside being a bad adaptation. It strays way too far from the source material to actually be a legitimate adaptation, but in both of these instances, it doesn't do anything new or exciting enough to be something worthwhile. It's just kinda there, safe, easy, going through the motions. And that's not what Wayside should be. It should be literally anything else except that. At the same time, there are other episodes that have weird and bizarre concepts and actually follow through on them. Episodes like Teacher-Parent Conference, where at Wayside, you get to grade the teachers. Todd's really upset with Mrs. Jewell sending him home on the kindergarten bus all the time, or rather, like 6 times, so he gives her all Fs. Because of this, she calls in her father to have a conference with Todd, finding out why he gave her all these bad grades. This is an episode that has a bizarre concept and follows it through in a very good way. It takes advantage of its creative premise, it has the characters stay in character, and it has a lot of good interaction that warrants some good moments. Why couldn't the rest of the episodes be like this? We can see from these that they're capable, they have the ability. Why is it so inconsistent? My guess is that it's the team of writers. Maybe some of them were really good and some of them were not as good, let's just say. That's a very important part about any show. The writers need to be on the same page. If they're not, episodes are gonna vary drastically, and the characters are never gonna be the same. Once again, that's what happened with Drawn Together Season 3 and Family Guy. So on the whole, is Wayside that bad? No, but with an asterisk. Wayside is one of the biggest mixed bags I've ever seen. The quality of the episodes varies astronomically. There are really good ones and really bad ones. Take your pick. If you want to go watch Wayside and judge for yourself, by all means do it. I do recommend sticking with some of the better episodes though, like the ones I mentioned in this video. It's a minefield out there, but when you get to the good stuff, it's a minefield worth walking in. And I will be honest, even some of the mediocre episodes are kind of guilty pleasures of mine. But that's me personally. I didn't put that in this video because that's my taste, and I don't really have any reason to justify it. However, I will say that the bad episodes, yeah, they're bad. They're pretty dang bad. If you don't like that typical Teletoon stupidity stuff, you're not gonna like the bad episodes. But again, Wayside is very divided. Some people love it, some people hate it. If you haven't already, check it out for yourself so you can decide which camp you're in. Well folks, thank you very much for watching the video. What do you think of Wayside? Do you think it's a good enough adaptation of the books? I don't think anyone's gonna say yes to that. So do you think it actually warrants its own existence? Do you think it does something different enough? Which episodes are your favorite? Comment below and let me know because I'm always excited to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you very much for watching, folks, and I'll see you guys next week, where more lost media hunting continues. Next week, it's time to talk about Vanished.